Assalamu alaikum dear students. Welcome back to the lecture 10. As you know that we are going through the chapter number 3, nervous system and behavior. In the previous lecture, we learned about the forebrain. Now, this is the continuity of the previous lecture number 9. We are going to read about the other two parts of the brain, the midbrain and hindbrain. Okay? So, let's continue. Midbrain. The second part of brain is the midbrain. Where is midbrain located? Actually, the midbrain is located between the hindbrain and the forebrain, and the nerves of this part are connected to the forebrain from the top and to the hindbrain at the bottom. Basically, it interconnects both of these two parts, the forebrain and hindbrain. What is the function of midbrain? It is the center of relaying information. It relays information, it sends information, it forwards the information to the other parts of the brain, and it is also involved in sight and hearing. So, midbrain has a function in vision and audition. Net, uh, let's discuss the next part of the brain, the hindbrain. Okay, hindbrain is divided into three major parts, the cerebellum, pons, and medulla. There are three parts of hindbrain, cerebellum, pons, and medulla. Let's discuss these parts in detail. Cerebellum. Okay, cerebellum is also called the little brain. This part is the cerebellum. It is very important part of the brain and it controls our movements. Cerebellum is involved in the balance of the body, movements of the body. Cerebellum constitutes 10% of the whole brain weight. There are 12 pairs of cranial nerves which are attached to the spinal cord through the cerebellum. Okay, the 12 pairs of cranial nerves, as we have read in one of the previous lectures, these cranial nerves are attached to the spinal cord through this cerebellum. Okay, so what is the function of cerebellum? Cerebellum coordinates voluntary movements. Voluntary movements are the movements which are under our control, which we can control. So, this cerebellum is involved in the movements of the body and maintaining body's equilibrium, body's balance. It also helps in the coordination of muscle movements. So, overall, cerebellum is involved in the movements of the body, has the function of producing balanced movements in the body. In case of any defect in the cerebellum, our sensory and motor functions lose coordination. If there is any defect or injury in the cerebellum, so the voluntary movements or the coordination loses its function. The coordination is imbalanced. For example, because of this defect or because of this injury to the cerebellum, a person walks jerkily instead of these steady movements. He will be unable to voluntarily move his body organs or limbs or move in a smoother and steadily. It is the cerebellum which brings about equilibrium and it coordinates bodily organs during, we can say that it coordinates during singing, dancing, swimming, and other bodily movements. If the cerebellum is destroyed, disturbed, damaged, or defected, We are unable to perform different sports because cerebellum is on the whole involved in body's equilibrium and movements. The individual loses balance, coordination, and the ability to grip things as well. Okay, so cerebellum controls the body's equilibrium. If it is disturbed, damaged, the body or the person is unable to grip the things, to hold the things, to move the organs, to perform different bodily acts, unable to move, unable to perform different sports, unable to swim, dance, sing, etc. There have been different experiments on animals as well, on the cerebellum part of animals as well. Experiments on birds have revealed that if their cerebellum has some defect, they keep flapping their wings lying on the ground but cannot fly. It is because the flapping of the wings for flight involves a peculiar frequency and order which cannot be maintained if there is any defect in the cerebellum. Okay, hope this cerebellum part is clear now. Next, move to the second part of hindbrain, that is pons. Pons interconnect both the hemispheres of the brain through corpus callosum and lower cortex nerves. What is the purpose or the function of pons? Pons serve as a bridge between both hemispheres, and it is also involved in the relay processes. It functions like a relay station. Relay station sends messages to the other parts of the brain. Okay. The next part is medulla. Medulla occupies a key role in executing mechanical functions of involuntary muscles. So, the medulla part is involved in the functions of involuntary muscles. It is medulla is also known as the top end of spinal cord. Okay, this portion is the medulla, which is the top end of spinal cord. Spinal cord extends from the medulla. The medulla part is involved in respiration, blood circulation, and maintenance of temperature in heat and cold. Okay, during rest and sleep, it slows down the functioning of heart and lungs so that they have a rest. The sensory neural impulse coming from the spinal cord goes through the medulla before it reaches the brain. Okay, so the sensory sensations coming from the spinal cord, from the spinal nerves, goes through the medulla, passes the medulla before going to the brain for higher functioning or higher processing. The motor neural impulse that travels from the brain to the body also passes through the medulla. Not only the sensory nerves pass through the medulla, but the motor nerves also pass through the medulla. Clear? If the upper front part of the medulla is damaged, okay, or injured or has some defect, so the connection between the brain and rest of the body is disrupted. So medulla holds a great importance if it is damaged. So the connection between the brain and the body is disrupted. And if the connection between the brain and body is disrupted, so there will be no coordination and the different functioning will be totally disturbed. The individual will be no longer able to produce voluntary movements. He will lose his ability to think. Okay, if the lower part develops some defect, the lungs discontinue to function, the heart stops beating, and the individual dies immediately. Okay, so medulla is of great importance because it works as a bridge between The sensory nerves of the spinal cord and brain. These nerves carry message to the brain via medulla and bring message from the brain to the body via medulla. So if this is damaged, then there would be dysfunctioning of lungs, heart, movements, cognitions, and so on, leading to death. Clear? So, this was all about structure of brain. In the previous lecture, we learned about forebrain. In today's lecture, we talked about midbrain and hindbrain. Now, we come to the second part of central nervous system, that is spinal cord. Nervous system has two major divisions, central nervous system and peripheral nervous system. Peripheral nervous system is a system of nerves. Central nervous system consists of brain and spinal cord. We are done with brain, its structure and functioning. Now we are going to read about spinal cord. Okay, spinal cord is the second most important part of central nervous system. We can say that it is second in command in the central nervous system after brain. Okay, it is half-inch thick and 16-inch long tube that is made up of white nerves. So spinal cord is half-inch thick, its thickness is half-inch, and it is 16 inches long. And it's a tube which runs inside the backbone. It is located in the holes between the discs of the backbone. Its length can be measured by the length of individual's back. Generally, it is 16-inch long. Okay. What are the functions of spinal cord? Spinal cord is actually responsible for reflex actions. A reflex action is simple in its nature and happens automatically in case of emergency and some important matters. Spinal cord, as we read earlier, it contains associative nerves which interconnect the sensory and motor nerves of the peripheral nervous system. Our skeleton is actually attached to the backbone. Spinal nerves, which consist of 31 pairs, branch from the spinal cord. The inner area of the spinal cord has a dark gray matter, whereas the outer area contains white matter. It is from here that the nerves reach out to the different parts of the body. If they suffer from some defect, the spinal nerves that are spread throughout the skeleton incapacitate the individual. As we have read earlier, we read in the first topic of this chapter, neurons. We talked about spinal nerves. These are the 31 pair of nerves. 31 pair of nerves, and each nerve has sensory and motor nerve at the same time. These take message from the body. These help to pass this message to the brain. And if there is injury in the spinal cord, so there would be no functioning of the body because the message is not being transferred to the brain. It conducts simple mental processes. It can interconnects the brain and the muscles. The neural impulses from the brain reach the concerned organ and muscles through the spinal cord. And if there is injury in the spinal cord, these neural impulses from brain do not reach the organs or muscles, and there will be no functioning of the body. There may occur paralysis of the body. Okay, so in today's lecture, we talked about the two parts of brain, midbrain and hindbrain, and the second part of central nervous system, that is spinal cord. These are the spinal nerves, 31 pairs of spinal nerves. Each pair consists of sensory and motor nerves at the same time. These are cervical nerves, thoracic nerves, lumbar nerves, sacral nerves, and coccygeal nerves. So, dear students, we are done with the central nervous system. We are only left with one small topic, factors which disturb the nervous system. We will be discussing that topic in the next lecture. So, till then, thank you. Allah Hafiz.